Namaskar. So the question you were asking me is, what is depression? What are the causes? And if we feel depressed, how can we get out of it? I think the first cause of depression is when we think bad things about ourselves. We have a negative image of ourselves. We don't like ourselves. Of course, that's going to make us feel depressed. I think that learning how to not identify with your weak points or your past mistakes and things like that and is very important, and to learn how to instead to identify with the eternal, the infinite, the perfect, the beautiful, which is your real self. So we have our small self and our great self. We have our outer self and our inner self. And when we identify with our outer self, how we look physically, how is our personality, and all those kinds of outer identities, that in itself is a big mistake. And everybody is imperfect. If we identify with the limited body and mind, personality in our history, of course, it's going to make us suffer. So in spiritual practice, in meditation, we learn how to step back, to withdraw our mind, for example, to one single point, and not to identify with being a person. I am not a person. I am light. I am spirit. I am the eternal. So it's a constant retraining. It's something that we have to learn how to do. Of course, your true self is always there, so you just have to uncover it. But giving time to be with your true self, to be present with yourself, to feel that presence of your inner being, it is important. If you don't give time for that, then you'll be stuck in the outside. I had to struggle in my adolescent and early adult years for a long time with depression. And I remember having a special experience which helped me. I was a student. I was feeling very depressed, thinking suicidal thoughts. And in the middle of the night, one night, I woke up and I saw this light on the wall. There was this beautiful light in the center, and there was this dark shadow around it. And I realized that it was me, that the dark shadow was my outer personality, the things that I didn't like about myself. But the beautiful light in the center was my spirit, my soul, which I hadn't been able to recognize and identify with up until that time. So that gave me a lot of, my life turned a corner at that point. And later, as I learned to practice meditation, I realized that that's what we do in meditation. We step away from identifying with the small outer self, and we contact and connect with and identify with that eternal beauty, which is our natural being. So that's the first cause and the first way to help ourselves, Learn how not to identify with your temporary outer personality, and learn how to identify with your eternal spirit. I think the second one is related to that. So I think the second cause of depression is when the distance from our true self is great, right? So the further you are away from that beautiful inner self, the more unhappy and depressed you will feel. And I think all mental problems, to one degree or another, come because people have lost contact with their inner being. So if we can decrease that distance, if we can learn how to be aware of that stillness, which is our true self, connect with it, sit with it, be with it. If we have that sense of being centered in ourself, then we will feel happy. Why? Because according to a spiritual philosophy, the very nature of yourself is happiness, right? You feel sad about something, you feel sad about this or that, but if you're just still and with yourself is not sad. Yourself is naturally happy. So keeping time in your life to sit with your being, which is naturally happy, and just be in your natural happy self. That's the way to, kind of overcome that problem. So we have to reduce the gap, right? All of us have some gap between our true inner being and where we are normally, right? The bigger the gap is, the more unhappy we feel. The less the gap is, the more natural ourselves, our natural happy selves we feel. I think the third cause of depression is imbalance. So we are physical, mental, and spiritual beings, and all of us are a little bit imbalanced. Some people put too much focus on their physical self and ignore maybe their mental or their spiritual self. Other people put too much focus on their mental self and maybe ignore their physical needs and their spiritual needs. Let me put it a little bit better way. We are physical, mental, and spiritual, and we need physical food, physical exercise, mental food and mental exercise, spiritual food and spiritual exercise. If we don't get physical food, of course, you will suffer, but the mind needs food too. We have to give it the right sort of food. We have to give it enough food. And our souls, our spirits, they also need food. And if we neglect that, then something will be out of balance. So I think it's useful for all of us to think about that. Where am I giving proper food? What is proper food for my body? What is proper food for my mind? What is proper food for my spirit? What is proper exercise for my body, my mind, and my spirit? Now, we don't have enough time to answer all those things there, but I think just keeping that in mind, you are physical, you are mental, you are spiritual. All those aspects need food and they need exercise. So balancing your life so that you give proper attention to the physical, mental, and spiritual, I think is helpful to get out of depression. So the last cause of depression that I want to talk about is something that I came across recently, and I find it very exciting. I found a psychologist named Dr. Lisa Miller, who's done a lot of research about depression and using clinical research and brain science. And what she found was that, or the conclusion she came to, is that depression is not an illness. It's actually a sign of spiritual awakening. So she concluded that, or what her research showed, is that everybody, all human beings, have spirituality as part of their genetic structure. So we are genetically, structurally, as human beings, we are spiritual. And that when that spirituality kind of blossoms, blooms, begins to express itself, it will often begin with some kind of depression. So a person, as they are starting to spiritually awaken, they feel, I want something more, something's missing, there is something deeper that I'm searching for. They begin to look for the infinite, for the eternal, for the spirituality within themselves, and they feel no longer happy with the material world, the limited world, and they go through a transition, and that transition is difficult. And when you become kind of depressed, you lose your interest in how your life used to be and you want something different. that makes you kind of stand back, look inside, ask questions, go deeper. But she also says that 1/3 of our spirituality is born into us, but to fully express it, it needs 2/3 education and support. And I think you also asked the question, when you felt depressed, what did you want people to say to you? So if what she says is right, and I really think that it is, then what we need at the time when our spiritual awakening is beginning to happen, we need people around us who understand that, who can support it and say, okay, this is what is happening. You're looking for something deeper. You're starting your spiritual journey, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's fine. You need to go within. You need to contact your inner spirit. You need to develop some relationship with a higher power, with God, right? So nobody told me that when I was feeling depressed. And if you look around us in society today, spirituality is something that people don't talk about. It's almost like a taboo topic. You can talk about this and that, but if you start to talk about spirituality, oh no, stay away from that, right? And that's a big mistake as far as society is concerned. Today, there is an unprecedented increase in depression, mental illness, suicides among young people. And what Dr. Lisa Miller says is that one of the causes of all these psychic suffering is that spirituality has become a taboo topic that you're not supposed to talk about. And that means that young people aren't getting guidance, they aren't getting support, they aren't getting encouragement for their spirituality. They are taught to think that there's something wrong with them. So this has to change. And I think it's a very important thing for all of us who are spiritual people to be aware that this is a real cause of psychic problems in today's society. In fact, the whole society is going through a depression because all human beings are spiritual. And if the society is only materialistic and it doesn't give space for that spirituality, then people are going to feel sick. I don't know if I said this before, but there was a quote from a student that writing on the wall in big letters during the student riots in Paris in the 1960s. God is dead. Marx is dead. And I'm not feeling too good myself. So when all these deeper things are gone, when the things that you kind of give some meaning to life, people feel that life is meaningless without that, and that makes us feel depressed. So I think the cure for this type of depression is we need people around us who support us. We need beautiful things to believe in the future, right? That maybe this world is going through so many challenges and difficulties, but it's part of a growth process. Human society is also at the moment of waking up, and the depression that you see is part of that waking up process. So I hope that answers your questions a little bit. Namaskar.